On this week's episode of the RAG podcast, I was joined by Pete Walker. And Pete is the founder of Brownlee Dean, a specialist recruitment agency in the construction sector, headquartered in Newcastle of the United Kingdom. And Pete has been a recruitment owner for 2 years, having been a recruiter for the same company for 11 years just before. So he started in the summer of 2018. But interestingly, Pete started his agency during the time his wife was pregnant. So he just moved house. He was about to leave his agency and set up his business, and then his wife told him she was pregnant. So he then took his time, but he managed to start the company 3 months before his baby boy was born. And after that, lived in the back bedroom of his house while he started his recruitment agency, all alone at home with winter coming in. He had a new baby, he had a new house, he had a new company, and as a man, as a human, he found this very, very difficult. In this episode, he talked about the human side of being a recruitment owner and how having a small family at the exact same time you're launching a business with 5 months worth of money left in the bank and no other opportunity but to make something of this was one of life's biggest challenges, but something that he's learned from, he's valued that experience, and I think has massively helped him during lockdown this year because he's gone back to where he was then. He's gone back to the same room in the same house and operated remotely like he did back in 2018. This episode is for anyone who's looking to start a recruitment agency now or in the future, or is in the early stages of growth and has also got personal shit going on. You've got families, you've got partners, you've got things you need to do outside of work, which you're worried about is it's gonna affect it negatively or might make it too much to handle. Hopefully by listening to Pete, you will get a sense that you're probably capable of more than you realize. Pete's a humble guy. He's direct. He's straight talking northerner. And I absolutely love talking to him and getting under the bonnet of his life, his agency, and what he's been through. So I'm hoping you love this episode as much as I did record it. Without further ado, Pete, welcome to the RAG podcast.
Thank you, Sean. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Not a problem. Delighted to have you on. Pete, I've done your little intro, but I can never do it justice. So for the listeners' benefit, tell us who you are and what you do.
So my name's Pete, and I'm the owner and founder of a company called Brownlee Dean, and we are a project civil engineering recruitment firm in the north of England. So we tend to recruit for what I like to call the nuts and bolts of construction projects. So these are the guys, the engineers and the project managers who make these projects money. So so that's what we do. Tend to focus north of England and Wales. My wife's Welsh, so when my little boy was born, I kind of ended up spending a bit of time in Wales. So we started doing business down there.
So you started doing, you went over there and then started doing BD in the spare time.
Yeah, basically, my wife likes to say that I pimped my son out to win business. So yeah, he was. He kind of, there's a couple of companies in North Wales that now actually, well, one of them in particular, they're one of our exclusive clients, and they're only about 10 minutes away from where my wife's family lived. So yeah, I just thought, why not take the opportunity while I was...
Do it. So where are you based?
So we're based in Newcastle, and we've got a team of 4, including me. So we've been running for just over 2 years.
Right. So you set the business up, what was that, 2018?
2018, yeah.
Was it what part of the year was it? Summertime?
It was July 2018. So.
I've got this weird thing, right? People laugh at me when I say this, but I think I can name something or remember something that's happened to me every single month of every year since about 2003. Like, it's the weirdest thing you could ever. It's like a party trick, right? So I don't know. I just remember when I left school. From then on, I can literally remember something that's gone on every month in my life. So I can find something in my head that happened. So I'm trying to think of July 2018. Yeah, and I can remember I'd just moved into a new flat in Romford. I remember it really well. Anyway, that's my weirdness. So how long were you in recruitment before you set up Brownlee Dean?
Yeah, so I was actually with, this is quite rare, I was actually with the same business for nearly 12 years.
Wow.
So yeah, so started in independent construction recruitment business. So I've always been in the construction civil engineering market. And then I started off working for the business in Leeds. So I was 24. So I was kind of like finished uni in Leeds. And then I did the usual thing of didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. So worked in a few clothes shops and kind of dossed around, going out on a weekend and the usual kind of the stuff you do when you're in your early 20s. And then just got sick of having no money, to be honest. And but fell into recruitment. I'd had a couple of interviews at one at Hayes, and I didn't really like the kind of corporate feel of Hayes. So started with my previous employer and just took to it like a duck to water, really. So and then I think I kind of saw a real I progressed my career quite quickly, and then 2008 happened and the recession, and it was a challenging few years. But I think when lockdown came, but in particular, although it was very different, I'd kind of been there before to a certain degree when business just fell off a bit of a cliff. So
that would have been what, 2 years or so into your recruitment career when that happened?
2 years in, yeah. So it was it was interesting to say the least.
Kept your job though.
Sorry?
You kept your job?
Kept my job. Yeah, I think that was all you could do back then. Just kept my job and dig in. And then thankfully, when we came out the back of that, my director gave me an opportunity to set up an office with the company in Newcastle. So there was me and another guy set the office up in Newcastle, 2010, and then built it from there.
Must have been exciting though at that age, setting up your own office in your
What was that? I was 27. So it was good. So kind of like I was always the contract recruiter and the other guy was the perm recruiter. So we it was a good mix, to be fair. We had a little shoebox office though at the start. It was it was interesting.
So how did you get to a point where you started planning your own thing? Like what happened there?
Yeah, I think I went through I think you go through the motions. Listen, I've been working for the same company for nearly 12 years, and they were a great company, and I've got no, it wasn't a case of like I wanted to leave and go work for someone else. I think I'd just been there a long time, and I started thinking to myself, right, okay, probably 18 months before I left, I started thinking, hang on a minute, I could do this for myself, really. And I wasn't the finished article in terms of actually having the business acumen to go and start up on my own, but I had the relationships, but I convinced myself it wasn't the right thing to do for ages. And you're always a bit scared, I think, of fear of failure.
Oh yeah, I had that for 2 years at least, where I probably had enough money and enough knowledge to do it, or at least I was good enough a recruiter to do it. But you do have fear, and there's always something else in your life. There's always something else going on. There's always a reason why to put it away. And I read something recently, and I think it's just so fucking true that change happens when the fear of staying the same becomes worse than the fear of change. So like when you look at something and staying the same is slightly more comfortable or better, you'll hold off. That's just a natural thing. And as soon as staying the same becomes worse than fucking whatever's in front of you when you do something, that's the time to do it. And it sounds like I got like that. It wasn't that like the employer I was with was a problem. It just staying there just became like, it's no longer an option. So it sounds like you had a similar experience.
Yeah, I was kind of and I was at a stage in my life where, I was 30, I was 35 at the time when I pushed the plug. 36 just gone when I kind of started, and I think there's a couple of main reasons. First of all, like I think professionally, I was getting a bit frustrated with the transactional relationships that probably the business had, and not so much what I had, but maybe the business had. I wanted to take things a different way and really kind of get out of that transactional recruitment process, and not just be in this mindset of like any business is good business. And I think that's carried on into Brownlee Dean, and that's part of the reason why I set it up. But I think personally as well, my wife was pregnant, and I was when I started the business, my little boy was due in 3 months. So
go on, let's just go back to your mind there. Like, there's a lot of things riding on setting up a company, but when you got your missus is pregnant, you're 3 months away from having a lad. Like, why on earth would you make the?
Well, I'll be honest with you, Sean. Basically, my wife had actually just set up the company and kind of pressed the button on things in, I think, end of January, February 2018. And then my wife told me she was pregnant. So basically, it was kind of I was snookered. I'd already kind of said, right, I'm doing this, and then and obviously that bombshell was dropped.
Did you tell your boss and everything? And you
I didn't. But I was kind of signed up with another. I was basically another shareholder in the business.
Right.
So I kind of agreed to them and signed everything. So it was past the point of no return. So yeah, I was in a position where. Yeah, I kind of didn't have any choice really, but it was let's be honest, I shit myself.
Oh God! Yeah. Well, so what happened for the next? Did you stay there then for another 3, 4, 5?
So what happened was I stayed there until and I was having the last 2 years before I left, I had some really really good years, and like my stories, it was like self-funded. I banked as much money as I could. Up until June 18. I put my notice in May because I couldn't really say anything because I've always had really good relationships with some clients, long-term relationships. I didn't want to take my foot off the gas with those clients. Yeah. I wanted to still serve those clients in the best way I could before I left, because if I just kind of hung my boots up 3 months before, then my desk could have finally fallen apart. Yeah. And I didn't. And to be honest, I didn't want that for the company either.
No,
it's not the way to work. But yeah, and then I kind of. So I put my notice in, and I'd had about 5 months worth of money to survive, and this was like July, and then I had a baby coming in October. So it really was like. The first 6 months, you've got to make this crack. Otherwise...
Were you on your own, or did you have anyone with you?
I was on my own.
On your own. So how did you name it Brownlee Dean? Where did that come from?
Yeah, so a lot of people ask me this. So Brownlee is actually... So the name Brownlee comes from a guy called Alistair Brownlee.
Right.
And a lot of people think, it's the runner, basically. I get loads of that, but it's actually not. It's... I'm a big Middlesbrough fan, right. And Alistair Brownlee was a commentator started off on BBC Tees and then Century Radio, and he commentated on Middlesbrough games for about 30 years. So most of mine kind of lifetime.
Right.
And anyone who's from Middlesbrough who's listened to this guy, he was the most optimistic, often blind optimism, like ridiculous, like. It was hilarious, like listening to him. We scored a goal, and it was like you hear one of those Brazilian commentators. Yeah. It's like that. But he actually died of cancer in 2016.
Oh, sad.
And and it was quite quick. He got diagnosed, I think, October, November, and he was gone sadly by the February. But the reason why I kind of chose that name is because, yes, he was like a blind optimist, but he was actually brilliant in what he did as well. So he was always glass half full, but he was really proficient in what he did. His commentating, his knowledge of players was absolutely amazing. And I thought that's kind of how I want my company to be, because we really do have excellent knowledge of the market, but we're also like really passionate about what we do. So I thought, instead of just calling it
optimistic,
Pete Walker recruitment, it's a bit.
Yeah. So where's the Dean? What's the Dean then?
The Dean is Dean Street in Newcastle. It's this like curved street that goes down towards the quayside. There's like a bridge over the top. It's an absolutely beautiful street. And in my old company, I worked on Dean Street for years. Right. So
great. I don't know Newcastle. Oh, I've never even been into the city centre. I've played football up there a couple of times, but never. One of the only major cities I've never been to. So
to be honest, it's a great city. I think for families as well. It's kind of not. It's not as cosmopolitan as Leeds. I mean, I lived in Leeds for 10 years. I love Leeds. So
Leeds is good.
if you kind of want a night out and nice restaurants and stuff, Leeds, Manchester, I would say, they're streets ahead. But there's a lot of kind of old boozers, and you've got the course nearby, and it's beautiful over the bridges when you come into Newcastle. So, I love living there. It's great.
Yeah, wicked. So, love the name, love the sentiment, and I'm a City fan, not a Middlesbrough fan, so I don't know the commentator himself, but I can kind of picture him in my head. Stuart Hall was
he used to be a bank manager, before he was a commentator.
Well, yeah. Anyone could do it. Stuart Hall was a big commentator. He used to do a lot of City games and stuff, and my dad would always have him on the radio, so I used to enjoy listening to him as a kid. So you start the business, you're on your own. What was day one like? Like, where did you base it? How did you do it?
So I was actually where I'm sat now in this little kind of shoeboxy back bedroom. I set up there basically.
Really?
But it was like day one. Phone, computer, little back bedroom, and that was it. I think. And listen, I've been with the business for a long time, my previous business, and I had, I wanted to kind of honour my restrictions as best I could, and I had quite strict restrictions in place. So it really was a case of getting back to basics and just going out and just winning it again.
Did you enjoy that as well, though?
I love that part of the job. Yeah, that is the one. The business development side is my. Yeah, I don't think I'll ever stop doing that. I love it. And yeah, so I started up day one, and to be honest, for a while it was great because I don't know if you remember, you probably don't remember. 2018 was a really hot summer.
Yeah, I remember. I do remember.
Yeah. And by the way, to add something else to the mix, I'd moved house like 2 months before I set up the business. So I know.
I knew how. Mrs. was pregnant right at the end, and it was boiling. Yeah, that summer I do remember everything that summer because it was like I went to Portugal. I think it was end of April. I got back on the 2nd of May or something. I remember going there and the weather was shite. Like it was pissing down. It was cold. And I remember flying out thinking, thank God. And I got back and the weather was hotter in London than in Portugal. Yeah. And it didn't, from that moment till about September, it was relentless. So it was, and you're stuck in a back bedroom.
Yeah, it was super hot and kind of like I'm quite near the course. So I had to be really disciplined. All of a sudden I've started my business. I've got 5 months money in the bank. I was thinking, well, I could just, get down to the beach. Yeah, exactly. But and I think when it was summer, I found it quite easy because nice days and it was bright and I could just get on with stuff. I got to meet people. It was great. And I think, but I think when Ellis, my little boy, came and it got into the winter months and I was still working in this kind of back bedroom when the dark nights came in, I think mentally that's when I started to struggle a bit. I think working.
How did you juggle the whole like birth, paternity, and there is no process. It's just you. Did you keep working? Did you take some time off? How did you do it?
Not very well, if you ask my wife. So yeah, because it was a C-section. So which was helpful because we knew exactly when it was. Yeah. Well, it was planned, so we knew exactly when it was going to happen. Which is, as a business owner, that's great because you can kind of plan. But then, I mean, if you ask my wife, like 2 hours after, or an hour and a half after he came, I was like taking calls in the corridor of the hospital, so of the IVI in Newcastle. So it wasn't great, but I took, I think I took about 4 days off afterwards.
Properly off, switch it off.
But then, it was in October, and then I took a bit of an extended break over Christmas. So it wasn't too bad.
I'm interrupting this podcast to give you another update from our sponsor, Odro. The team at Odro have launched another feature in summer 2020, and it's going to be a game changer. This is going to massively change the way the recruitment agency market operates globally for the future. They've called it Odro Producer. This platform sits alongside the company's award-winning video interview opportunity and gives you, the recruiter, the ability to create engaging, eye-catching video content ready to share in a matter of minutes. So you can record or upload a video, and then you can add banners, overlays, images, subtitles, logos, so that you can create these eye-catching videos that are built for LinkedIn. So whether you're interviewing, whether you're doing sales messaging, or you're just trying to put out valuable content online, then Odro is no longer just a video interview platform. It's also a content creation platform for recruiters. Get in touch with Odro today to see how you can implement this into your recruitment agency ASAP.
Thanks for listening. Let's get back to the show.
It's a lot of things to take at once. That new house, new company, new baby. You know, as a human first, as a man, that's a lot of change. There's a lot. You think of your life 6-7 months before. You're working for a firm. You're in a different property. You know, you didn't even know if your missus was going to be pregnant, and now your whole life changes in 3-4 months. How did you cope with that personally?
Yeah, I think in hindsight, I thought I coped with it fairly well. I just ploughed myself into work. I think as a go-to, I don't know if you're the same shot. That's what I tend to do. I just plough on and get into it. But and I think as a business has got bigger, I think I've realised like the need to have like a strong network around me of both friends and, you know, business acquaintances and such like. And I probably didn't have that at the time. And I think my mental health certainly towards the winter period really took a bit of a downward spiral, and the motivation kind of dropped off a little bit.
What's the signs for you? Because this, I'll be honest, I think I've probably found the last couple of months the hardest of my life in terms of mental health, right? And I kind of didn't get it before. Like I understood the phrase mental health, and I've seen some really difficult things happen. I've talked on the show before. My housemate committed suicide years ago when he was suffering, and I've seen it in other people, and I knew it was real, but it never really. I felt like I was a bit bulletproof from it, and then boom, the last couple of months I've struggled, and for me the signs have been things like not wanting to start work. Like honestly, I've woke up in the morning, and for the first time since I can remember, I've been dreading, like, not the job, but just dreading changing my mind into work. Like, I've been telling myself, like, it's going to be a lot harder than it is. And I've kind of, I don't know, just been putting it's like a weird loop of thoughts that I've never suffered from. And I know why. There's lots going on outside of work. But what were the signs for you as to knowing that mental health's not quite where you want it to be?
Yeah. I mean, I think I was in a more fortunate position than maybe some, in that I've actually like struggled with my mental health for a number of years. So it wasn't something that was kind of,
you knew it,
new to me. So I kind of knew the signs. I think before I saw someone about it years ago, I would have never known what the signs were. But for me, I think similar to you, Sean, that getting out of bed on the morning is a prime one. But for me, it was more like I'd end up doing like 15-hour days and just throwing it all into it. And then I'd finish work and I was just I was an awful husband, you know. I was ratty, like really, you know. And I think another sign for me, and this is kind of obsessing a little bit over certain conversations. So if a conversation didn't go right with a client, I'd be thinking, oh, well, did they think that about me, and did they think that about the business? And instead of just like, I think when I'm healthy and my mind is clear, you see that for what it is and you move on. Whereas I think when you're in that space, you're in that headspace,
you start to obsess a bit.
You're overthinking everything. And to be honest, I've seen that in one of my colleagues, actually, one of my staff during lockdown. And I've seen that firsthand from this individual. Kind of like each day I can see it, and I'm thinking, wow, this is happening to one of my staff here. I can see it.
Yeah.
And it's not good. But I think when you're in it, it's sometimes difficult to.
It's really hard because, like you say, if you're not speaking to someone and no one's kind of helping you navigate it and accepting that, you know, this is happening, but you need to move. There's tactics you can think about to improve. If you don't get that advice, and it is just, I reckon a lot of people listening will be going through things and they just don't know if it's normal. You know, is it actually a problem? And most of us in our roles in senior leadership, recruitment owners, marketing agencies, whatever, entrepreneurs, we do throw ourselves into work as a default. Like that's how to fix it. Just fucking work your way out of it. But I don't think necessarily that's the way forward. I don't think that's not for your brain. It might make you more money, but you can't buy a healthy brain anyway. So it's what was life like through that winter then? As we go through the Christmas period, you've had your break. Obviously, your boys now starting to change and grow, and you've got all of that going on in the house. How did you get on in the new year?
Yeah, I think the new year, I kind of switch seemed to come on, and I think a lot of that actually, it coincided with me moving out of this, this small back bedroom, as you would say, into office space in the March, and that really did kind of just. I think as well, my little boy was sleeping a bit better as well. I know it sounds stupid, but these little things, if you're running a business and it's dark, and then you're throwing yourself into it, and your mental health's not quite right, and then you've got 3 hours, 4 hours sleep to contend with. It's just an absolute cycle for
non-stop.
For just going on a downward spiral essentially. So yeah, when it got to kind of March time, and a bit of a switch came on in my head where I started to think, hang on a minute, I can't do this like all by myself. And I don't mean that by like getting more staff, which at the time I did hired my first member of staff in May, but it was more a case of I needed people around me who kind of been in the same situation, or had a kid, had a business. We're 2 years into a recruitment firm. We're 5 years into a recruitment firm. So I could actually say, well, hang on, how did you feel 2 years in, or what were you going through? And I think as well, just learning. I think that this probably resonates with a lot of people listening. I think we beat ourselves up as recruitment owners. We absolutely, we give ourselves a kick in if things don't quite go right. I think sometimes you just need to step back and think, we're not going to win them all, and take on board advice and time to reflect and things like that. And I just wasn't doing that in the first. But I think some of that came from pressure, because I knew that money was going to run out in 6 months' time.
How did you perform in that first 6 months then? Did you make money with billings okay?
Well, yeah, billings were okay, yeah, to be honest. And then early part of the new year, they just started to fly. Obviously, I was out of my restrictions, and then, to be honest, 2019, hired 2 staff, and we had a fantastic year. So, yeah, it was just that initial period, Sean. That initial working in a busy recruitment office to all of a sudden working completely remotely.
How many people can relate to that now, though, as a result of lockdown? Like, how many can look at their lives and go, fuck it, can you remember February, March, how different life was? For most people, like, they're going, we're getting used to this shit now, and we're all evolving, and everyone's going back at 50% and all these things, but still life fundamentally changed in February, March, to the point where, but you'd had a bit of experience in that. That little bit of time you had there was like almost like a test for what came this year. And do you think that helped this year then?
Massively helped, yeah, because I was all of a sudden I was back in the same like physical space again. I was back in the same office, this little back bedroom. So it was kind of, I'd been there before, and I'd done it, and I'd been there and done it, and that was huge for me. That huge, and I think if I'd not had that, I would have really, really struggled, to be honest. But we as a business, we handled COVID really well, and we were busy. So I think that helped. That helped me and my team, certainly.
A final interruption to today's episode to introduce Vincere. Vincere is the all-in-one CRM ATS platform built for the recruitment and staffing industry. Now, I first heard about these guys about a year ago. The amount of prospect recruitment agencies and clients I was working with that were telling me they were moving over to Vincere, I had to look into it. And what I found was a business that had a global reach with multiple offices around the world. So they've got this follow the sun methodology, which allows them to support recruitment businesses wherever you are and be in your time zone. But the technology that they've invested in is becoming a disruptor in the space. More and more recruitment businesses are doing this to give their their recruiters a competitive advantage. They broke into the G2 Crowd's momentum grid as a market leader based on their reviews from their customers. So the agencies that are using this platform are raving about it. Now, if you're a RAG listener and you're thinking about changing CRM, or you're a new business looking to launch with a new CRM, then I would get in touch with these guys, because if you mention that you're a RAG listener, they're doing an amazing deal. By visiting www.vincere.io/RAG, you can get an exclusive deal which offers 2 months completely free on a 2-year commitment, or 3 months completely free on a 3-year commitment. This applies to all licenses that you've either signed up for now or that you'll add in the duration of the contract. So get on there and have a look. Finally, if you're listening and you're a recruiter and you're thinking, I want to move into a more of a business development role, and I'd like to keep hold of my recruitment knowledge. Well, these guys are recruiting for a BD person, well, multiple roles in both Sydney and London right now. So if you've got a strong recruitment background, you want to move into BD and you want to work for a fast moving tech business that's helping people like you right now, then get in touch via their website, because they're hiring today. Back to the show. Did the construction industry, did it take a hit at any point in terms of the roles you've got?
Yeah, it did, because I'm sure, I'm sure there's other people in construction recruitment who are listening to this, and I think, those first 2 weeks in April, as probably for most, were, Jesus, what we're going to do? This is absolutely what's going on. And it must have been, it's so awful for so many business owners during that first 2 week period. It was like the 2 weeks from hell, really, of lockdown, because you're just trying to get to grips with what's going on. But then I think where we position ourselves in the market, we tend to recruit for a lot of public funded civil engineering projects, and the government wanted those to keep running. Roads, infrastructure, water treatment, MOD projects. That was all. Critical infrastructure. So we boomed off the back of that, really. So I think by early May, we were starting to see a little bit of movement. Perm was still slow, but we've got a good contract desk, and I think contract has been king off the.
I bet, yeah, especially across the board. I've dealt with clients in every sector in recruitment in the last 4 months, and there's been some really hard hit. Like, one of my guys in the academy is in event recruitment and hospitality, and it's still not anywhere near back, and it's so tough to see what that person and his people are going through and stuff. But on the whole, across the board, I feel like we're nowhere near where we were, but I think industry in general has just got to a point where they're like, we're going to have to make this work. We're going to have to we're going to have to work. We're going to have to keep going. We're going to have to hire. We're going to have to do things. We can't just sit here and wait for the economy to completely fall off a cliff. So across the board, people are making the best out of it. And as recruitment owners, like you say, optimistic is one of the traits I would say, lives in a lot of the owners that are doing well anyway. They're trying to find the glass half full mentality, which is wicked. What you mentioned something before, which I wanted to touch on, about being a crap husband and being ratty. And, I can empathize, and I'm sure most men can, you can think, shit, I've had days where I've done a full day and I've been waste of time. And do you know what? I think I was worse on a Saturday for a period, where it was that moment to breathe out after such a busy week that I was probably brain dead more than anything. I didn't want to talk, because all I've done is talk all week. So how have you, I guess, evolved through that? And what's life been like in the last year from that perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd listened to quite a lot of audiobooks, and you probably listened to it yourself. Brian Tracy, Newcastle Psychology of Achievement. But
no, I've not. I'll get it.
It's American and pretty kind of cheesy, but it is good. And he talks about the most most successful business owners tend to have a supportive spouse, and I truly believe that. And my wife's had to sacrifice a lot, I think, to deal with me at times. And listen, Sean, I've not all of a sudden changed in the last year. No. It's still really tough. But I just think, I think sometimes as business owners, I know I feel like this. We're that busy as recruiters in the day, and we're dealing with COVID, and we're dealing with all this different stuff that's going on, and counter offers, and whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. And you're talking, like you said, you're talking all day long, and you get in and you talked out. But I just think trying to, and a lot of time I didn't want to share any of that. I was like, you don't understand it. I can't be bothered to go through it. You know, I'm going through it in my own head. But I think as long as I kind of share how I'm feeling with my wife, that's all she wants, and she's fine with that.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like I think we just don't understand, especially as men. Sometimes we don't understand. Like, you know, they just want to know what's going on in our minds, really.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and as much as we kind of want to, well, I certainly do. Sometimes I just want to deal with it and come in and, I don't know, put the telly on and go down like 10%, you know, just to zone out for a bit.
Yeah,
but and I've got to try and like help my wife understand the challenges, I think, really. Interestingly, to be fair, Sean, when I first started the business, I had a really difficult, she was in the car with me, and I had a really difficult conversation with the client. Something had not gone well. And I've been on the phone for about 10 minutes and she was in the car, and then I got off the phone. I looked round to her and she was crying her eyes out. And I was like, what are you crying for? She was like, I just feel really sorry for you.
Really?
I was like, Claire, that's recruitment.
You got a keeper there. I remember having a chat in the morning at the beginning of the lockdown. One of my clients, well, he's no longer a client, just didn't pay. Just stopped paying us. Like, just literally stopped paying. And it was like 7 a.m. in the morning. And this is the only time the guy would speak to me. And I was like, all right, cool. So I'm up at 7, ready to talk. And then still doesn't, like, rocks up on the phone at 7:20. And I'm just like, you've not paid. You've not communicated anything. You don't turn up to meetings. Like, I've got better things to do at 7 a.m. than wait for you for 20 minutes. Like, anyway, we had this heated chat at 7:20. And my missus walks in and she's like, what's going on? Like, she never heard anything like that 7:30 in the morning going off in the house. But she didn't start crying at all. I'm not in that. I haven't got that supportive one. But it is crazy. I think you made an amazing point there. You know, I think we protect. It's two things. I think it's trying to piece it in our head. We don't want to repeat it. We can't be asked at times to even talk about it. But also, I want to protect that person from. I don't want to offload my shit on them because they've got their own shit. Especially if she's got your boy to look after all day. Like, does she need? You probably intrinsically feel like, well, I'm not. You know, I'm protecting you by not offloading it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it can't be that way. Like, you've seen that picture. Someone put it up on Instagram and LinkedIn this week where the guy is hanging over and he's got the rock on his back, and then the woman's hanging and she's got the snake grabbing it. And it is so true. Like, you don't know what the other person's going through. And even when you're trying to protect them, you're probably not protecting them as well. It's crazy. But what does the long-term future look like for you? Like, you've got your kid's a couple of years old. You've got your business in good shape now. Like, what does success look like? I know it's quite an open question, but.
Yeah, so I think I've gone through a bit of a kind of phase in the last 3 months where, you know, I've got a team of there's 4 of us now, and we just moved into the office. We've been doing fantastically well over recent months. You know, I'm at a stage now where I think it's really getting serious about like the next phase of the business. You know, I think COVID could have been a situation where I'd actually gone, well, hang on a minute, should I just go back to me and have a good life? But I don't enjoy working on my own, and that's always been in me. So I think, you know, that was never really an option for me. Although, listen, that probably sounds a bit flippant. I understand that has been a reality for a lot of people, and I completely empathise with that. And I would, you know, if I had to do that, I would.
Yeah.
But we held our nerve and got through it, and now we're growing again. So I think the future for us is just I think organic growth I don't want to take on, I don't want to hire mad and bring loads and loads of consultants on board. I'm really interested in systemizing as much as I can in the business. I think that is key, and I think that's key for the future of recruitment, to be quite honest.
100%.
And just I think for us as well, one thing we're big on at the minute is we're just looking at the candidate and the client journey and how we can improve that, really. And that's kind of a big thing that's hot on our agenda at the minute. It's difficult in recruitment. Recruitment consultants get a bad rap that, they're dealing with hundreds of applications. It's quite challenging to kind of, especially the candidate journey, to really win that battle. But there's certainly improvements that can be made throughout the industry, to be honest.
100%. There's, just the basics of using automation and technology to respond to people, regardless of whether they're going to get the job or not. Just a response to a lot of candidates is half the battle. And the more we use tech, the more we use brand and automation content to support small teams. I've seen there's a fine balance what you've said there, because some people have probably ripped the arse out of their company to protect themselves, but actually by shedding so many people, they won't have the team when it bounces to capitalize. And, that was something I was very conscious of as well. Like, you're going to have to go as low as you have to go. But if I can protect the people to the point where I've got the team when it comes back, I'd prefer that. But at the same time, what I've seen a lot of recruitment companies do now is think, well, all that money I spent on resources, not saying sit there on your own, but if you have got a small team, 4 or 5 people, top people as well, could we use tech automation brand? Could we do more with less? Could we automate things? We're all working semi-remote now. Could we stop investing in too many heads and do more with what we have? And that's quite an exciting journey, I think. It's quite an exciting future, because years ago you had to just hire people. There was no way of growing without hiring more people, which is the only way to grow. Whereas I think you can, you should be able to get more out of each member of staff with the right services.
Yeah, I think what we need to get right, and I think a lot of businesses maybe don't have this nailed. And this is something that I'm working through at the minute. Is like if we bring a new consultant on board, what is their roadmap to success? Essentially, what do they have to do? Activity, not just activity, but and really nail it down. Like really nail it down to kind of scripts and everything. I know recruitment's not scripted. I understand that, but I think certainly when I started in recruitment, it was just right. Here's a phone. Here's a load of numbers. Crack on. And that is just, that game is dead.
Yeah, agreed.
It is dead. We've got to be adding like more value and thinking about your language and looking at it that way. And I think that's something that I think we've got to get that right and nailed as a business. And we're looking at that now to then bring more people in. Otherwise, I think if we haven't got that plan and we haven't got that process in place, then we're running the risk of bringing people in and they haven't got that roadmap. Simple as that. Agreed.
Final question then. So you talked about a book there. What advice would you give? So I reckon there's people listening that are in a similar boat. They're either, they're pregnant, they've got young children, they're recently married, recently bought houses, and they're thinking of starting a recruitment agency at the moment in what could be the best or worst time ever to do it. What advice would you give someone who's either, they've either just took the leap and they're in the early days, or they're in the early days, they've got family commitments, they've got shit going on outside of work. What advice would you give them based on your experience?
I think 2 things. It's a good question. Caught me on the hop a bit there. I think two things. And something I didn't do. So I've learned from experience. I think get crystal clear about what you want to get out of it. Do you want to be a lifestyle recruiter, or do you want to build a business? Because they're 2 like massively different things. And I think unless you kind of really have that in your mind, then you might get caught in the middle between the 2, essentially. And the other, and something that led me to I'm using things I'm using examples of things I didn't do, to be honest. The other, I think, is just that you've got to get a network around you from the start. Get a network of other people who've been in a similar situation to you. That I didn't really start doing that until the second year.
Yeah.
And that has taken my business to another level, I think, really. And it's so important because you can't do it all. You don't know it all. And also for the mental health thing, you know, speaking to people who've been in a similar situation to you, it helps no end. It really does. I can't stress enough how important that is when you start up on your own and you start a business, and it keeps you focused, stops you scattergunning. I think in the first year I scattergunned at a lot of stuff, and you fall into that because, you know, in my situation, I had a baby coming, I didn't have that much money, and you've just got to right, crap, I've got to get business in. But, you know, I think if you get a good network around you, and as well keep focused and keep fairly niche, and really understand what your niche is, and then communicate that to your network, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, it's a simple one. That, I mean, I always advise, look, if you can fill a fucking window cleaner job in the background, who cares? But you've got to make sure online and on your pitch is straightforward. This is what I do. And don't deviate too far away, because if you'll end up being a product of your own success and just recruiting anything for anyone who you've done well for, and it becomes a mess. And in the first year,
it's a transactional as well, Sean. That's the, you know, then you end up being this transactional.
Well, we had it at the beginning. We said, you know, we're only doing recruitment agencies, and then we had a few clients that came to us in-house teams, and we had a few like estate agencies, and, you know, we took a couple of projects on that weren't recruitment, and it didn't work because we weren't focused on it. We weren't investing the time in learning. We weren't from the industry. Like, I remember going and meeting this property management company and thinking, it's got to be the same, hasn't it? And then I got there, and all the things that we'd done and all the knowledge we had of the recruitment sector was dead. And all right, there's principles that are the same, like recruitment. You could go and recruit any industry because the principle of recruitment is the same, but it's the knowledge, it's the time, there's so much you've got that when you stick to a niche, you add more value. Pete, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, mate, and your honesty. And I know for a fact this is going to help a lot of people just to listen to your experience and the confidence. I mean, look, 2 years, you've had to deal with so much, global pandemic, young child, and look, I know your business is doing really well, and you're an inspiration to a lot of people that are thinking of doing it or have already just took the leap. That, you know, 2 years, anything can come at you, and if you've got the right attitude, you can make it happen. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure, mate. Thank you.
If anyone wants to reach out directly and ask you any questions and find out how you've got that network, etc., you're more than happy to chat to them, I assume.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. To be honest, you know, I'm always looking to build my own network of good people. So yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. All right. Well, I'll tag you in everything on LinkedIn. And guys, thank you so much for listening to another episode of the RAG podcast. This season 3, it's going to be a short season of episodes, mainly because of what we're going through globally, but it's all about that human side of being a recruitment owner. It's not so much about recruitment. It's more about being a business owner and being a human, being a mother, a father, a husband, a brother, whatever. We've all got other things going on, and hopefully if we can, share, be more honest about it and acknowledge the fact that, we're not perfect, then together we can support each other. I'll be back again next Wednesday with more stories. In the meantime, you stay safe, and I'll see you soon.